All right, we are back for episode 129 of Digital Divination.
129. That reminds me that I'm an employee of Wizards of the Coast and my opinions are mine and not theirs.
Yes, that is, it seems like 128 reminded you of that as well.
It did.
Every number
I am
reminds you of that.
mandatorily reminded of that every time I appear.
Very good. Well, I will first point out to our listeners that I have changed backgrounds. I now have a green screen of a fire. No, I actually have an actual fire. We're painting my office, so our whole downstairs we had to move out of, and all my bookcases are put away and everything. So for this episode and maybe the next one, I'll be up here in front of the cozy fire.
Or not appear in front of the cozy fire. We can have the episode just be like one of those Netflix shows that's like 8 hours of cozy fire.
And none of us
Like
talking.
Crackling. That's right.
We'll do that for the next one. That'll be good.
Staring.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of numbers, I was thinking we needed to get a chicken update from Ron, especially given the extreme value that chickens have now in today's marketplace.
That's right. Well, and the number is 3 only because, we had as many as 8 chickens, but over the course of the past couple months, we lose 1 every couple of weeks. That seems to be a winter thing because we have the whole, we've got the coop and then the run is all closed off and only part of the top is closed off because you got a big willow tree that covers it. But in the winter, when all the leaves fall off the willow tree, a very wily animal could just climb up the willow tree, slip in between the branches with no leaves in the way, and then get right into the chicken run. And there appears to be some wily animal that does just that every couple of weeks. So our flock is down from 8 to 3.
Wow.
But that's enough. They're still doing their work even through the winter. I had eggs from my backyard today. I feel like a robber baron about that. I'm like, oh yeah, I had eggs.
Wow. Well, it's sad about the dwindling number of chickens. Is that something you like kind of build up again in the spring with your? I remember when you got out your little chicks.
Well, yes, we'll probably get another little flock in the spring. You can't add, as far as I understand it, you can't add 1 or 2 chickens to a big flock because the old hens will just bully and peck the newcomer to death sometimes.
Oh, wow.
If you've got like a big enough number and we raise them so that they're separate, if we get another 6 maybe, then I think we can introduce the 6 to the older 3 and they kind of have to get along. I think maybe that'll be our experiment for the next. I'll let you know the next chicken update.
Okay.
There are a fair number of people here around in our neighborhood in Vancouver who have some chickens, and they'll have them. You hear them in the backyard sometimes as you walk by a fence, but there's a couple people who have their chicken runs like kind of in the front yard-ish.
Really?
Some coops and yeah, it's maybe they don't have room in the backyard or whatever, but you can walk by and you can see them. There is one house by the park that we sometimes go to that has just so many chickens just in their front yard, fenced off, of course, just loose all the time. They were playing in the snow the other day. It was amazing. And I also have a local feed store, which is sometimes where we get dog food and sometimes where it's also a hardware store. Has some chickens. It has a couple geese, a couple ducks, and a couple donkeys.
Wait, for sale?
That you can go look at. No, they're just there.
Okay.
They're just there in the front
like
of
a petting zoo
in a run behind. I mean, you're sort of not supposed to pet them, but also like if they come up to the fence up. And now they're showing off like pigeons. They've got like cages of pigeons by the front door that they raise. The owners have raised. They do sell rabbits and other birds inside as well. So it's a pet shop, a hardware store, and a feed store, basically all rolled into one.
Wow.
Yeah, it's neat. I didn't know they had donkeys for like the first 3 months we were here.
There's a place just north of us because we're in a farm valley, right? There's a place north of us where they have goats, and they've recently put out a sign that says "Goat hugs $5." And I think if you go and pay them, it's basically a petting zoo, right? You can go hug their goats, and their goats are friendly enough to give you hugs. So
you wouldn't be able to stop me.
you'd run out of $5 bills as fast as you got them, right?
I'd be going to the ATM more often to get cash. Well, I wonder if I could run a tab.
Put it on my bill.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you just have a monthly goat hug subscription. They probably do that.
That's right.
Would 100% do that.
Wow. Well, here on the island, there are some chickens, but the more interesting thing is a couple blocks down. For the longest time, they had a sign: "Beware of the raptors," and they had turkeys, and they
Ooh.
would perch up on the roof and fly down at you and stuff.
Oh my goodness.
Perching
Yeah,
turkeys.
so
Oh
they
my
were.
goodness.
It
I
was,
would expect.
you
I
know,
mean, for Camino, this is my stereotyping that area, right? I would think that orcas would just come out of the water and snatch them or something. I guess I don't know. I think
too
that
far
orcas are
away.
probably a
It's too
pretty big
far
problem
away.
up there.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen the orcas in the buoy line, so pretty close to shore, but, yeah, the
Ooh.
turkeys and the orcas don't mix, so, you know, it's okay.
It's for the best.
That's right. I do remember reading that one of the only natural predators of moose are orcas. Because moose will go into the water, and it's one of the few creatures that like can threaten something the size of a moose is an orca, and orcas will eat them if they can. So
Wow.
Wow. And this is, the farmyard and orca update for today.
that's right.
Mhm.
Well,
But hey, we
so
should talk Starfinder, right?
we could, especially, last Wednesday, so that would be a week and a day from when this gets published. There was a special Paizo Live on Starfinder Second Edition.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
With kind
Bunch
of a
of
lot
stuff.
of information.
it was with Thurston Hillman, Thirsty, who is the associate editor now for Paizo,
Producer.
associate producer.
Producer. Yeah. Associate editor is a
Oh,
different, entirely
shoot.
lower
Oh, you're
on
right.
the
You're right. You're right.
poking
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
on the
I was
pole kind of
thinking like he's associate whatever Eric Mona is, isn't it?
right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Eric Moon is the publisher.
Associate publisher. Yeah, you
Yes.
said producer.
Did I
You
say
Yes, you
said
did.
producer?
producer, and that made
Yeah.
me
Oh,
very
Oh,
confused.
I'm
associate
sorry.
publisher.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
I always
Publisher.
think of like like a magazine or comic or something, like the editor is in charge of everything, but yeah, it's a publisher. Anyway, so Thirsty.
We
Yeah.
we did have an editor in chief
Right,
for a
right,
while.
right. That's what it was before.
And that position no longer
Right.
exists technically, I
So
would say.
Thirsty was the former creative director for Starfinder, is now the associate
Mhm.
publisher, was there. And then Jenny Jarzabski, who was a senior developer and is now the creative director for Starfinder, had an hour-long
Mhm.
chat about what's coming for Starfinder Second Edition, which I thought was pretty exciting.
Yeah, oh yeah.
What else?
We talked about some of this stuff before because we knew what was going on, but there's some
Right,
new
yeah, some
stuff
new
in here
stuff
that we can
coming
definitely
out. And so
and some more details on the old
right,
stuff.
so they started off with the Galaxy Guide, which we talked about a couple episodes ago.
It's the very next product that's coming out, right?
Yes, in
Yeah.
Ap
May.
April or May, yeah, one of those 2.
May, yeah.
Well, I thought I saw the special thought you could get the special edition sooner or no, maybe.
Oh.
I don't know, I was yeah, May, okay, May. I don't know for sure, I'm not looking at it right now, but I'll believe Jason because he probably knows these things. Um,
Maybe.
right. But, a couple of things that they talked about in there, which I thought were interesting, was that there are lots of adventure seeds in the Guide and lots of different types of adventures. And they kind of went through, if you like a horror adventure, you like a, high fantasy adventure, all these different things. They have kind of adventure
Right.
seeds for
Yeah.
those up front to get you started. Um,
Kind of like telling you where you might go in the galaxy,
right. Yeah.
right?
So like
Through
make it
that,
like a
right?
world
Yeah.
guide kind of thing. And the other thing they mentioned was they made a bunch of promissory notes, is how Thurston said this. So they highlighted things that basically they're saying, these are things that exist in Starfinder, and you will see this down the road in other products, is how I read that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's, pretty something you want to do. Like you want to put all these, you want to sow these seeds, plant these seeds so you can sow
yeah,
them later and be like,
foreshadowing. Yeah.
oh, look,
Stuff.
how we talked about,
Yep.
foreshadowing. Exactly. You know how we talked about X? Well, here it is. And it leads to Y and Z.
Well, and
Right.
that's
Right.
sustaining a viable ecosystem or creativity. There is every one of those seeds that you then grow into something you have to plant at least 2 more to go further down the line. No.
Yeah.
Mhm. And what I thought was really cool is something that he mentioned about the cover of the Galaxy Guide. Did you all catch that?
Oh, I did not. What is this?
So the cover
Is he talking about the special edition cover?
No, I think it's the regular
Oh.
cover. Yeah, it's the regular cover that I'm looking
Okay.
at.
Yeah.
It's this one that had this big old fiery thing. It's got the witch warper on
With the
there.
witch warper on it, yeah.
The vast,
Yeah.
Fighting,
the big
a
fiery thing it's
Fractal
fighting
something.
is a Luminantra. Something that Thirsty made is a CR25 creature.
oh, it just looked like some
Ooh.
kind of fractal monster. I didn't know
Yeah,
what
that's what
fractal
I thought it
monster
was too. And then he said, no, this is what this is. And later on, he talks about this being the highest level thing in the just now announced Alien Core coming out.
Which a couple weeks ago, I remember
Ah.
hearing that it had been the Alien Archive again for this new edition. And Jason, you were the one who was like, that's not right, but I don't know if we've announced everything. And now we know Alien Core.
Now we know.
Alien Core.
Alien Core.
So I thought that was kind of interesting. So basically, this Galaxy Guide is got all these adventure seeds in it and talks about all these different places that you can go and do things. And it foreshadows this massive CR25 creature now on the cover of it.
Nice. Yeah.
So a big boss of some sorts.
Well, I'm very curious about that, and I may go peek at it later.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm curious too. Can I
Sorry,
peek
not
as well?
not to wave my privilege
okay.
around.
That's okay.
No,
That's why you're
you can't.
here, is because you got all this knowledge and
Yeah.
privileges.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay.
But I keep it to myself. I hoard it
Yes.
greedily, like a golem.
All right. Next thing you talked about was the Player Core, which comes out in August, Gen Con release.
Mhm.
So I'm volunteering at Gen Con to run some things, and one of the options they gave us for you can get rewards is hard copy of the Player Core. So, and I'm on the
Very
subscription anyway, but I'd like to get an extra so I can have it for other people, reference things like that. I might even have a friend that no longer gets all the Starfinder
Like
stuff and
me?
might enjoy a copy. I don't know, things like
Mhm.
that. But yeah, so we talked about the Player Core. Interesting things mentioned there. 6 new classes, 10 new ancestries, new skills, new spells, and everything you need to play Starfinder will be in this.
Yeah.
You will not need any Pathfinder books in order to play Starfinder if you have the Player Core.
So
Yeah.
very much so different from the playtest, which really requires the player
yeah.
core,
Yes.
the Pathfinder player
Yes.
core to be able to play.
How many ancestries are in the playtest? Because that sounds like more ancestries that are in the playtest.
Well, we know the 6
Um,
class. Wait, we know that,
I know the classes.
Ancestors.
and we know that
Oh,
10. How many do we have in the
We know-
playtest? I'll reach
well,
right behind me.
I don't.
I'm
That's
not
what I'm
sure.
gonna
That's
look
what I'm
at right now.
wondering.
Ancestries. Oh, 1,
could
2,
also
3,
reach
4,
mine.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 in here.
Well,
No, there's 10. There's 10 in the
2 of those.
Starfinder Second Edition.
Okay,
there
there
are
are
10 of
10.
them.
Oh, what am I
Okay.
It's
double
gonna be the
counting
same
here?
Okay, there are
10.
10 in here.
Said
It's going to be
ancestors.
Android, Barathu,
Okay.
Human, Kasatha, Lashunta, Patra,
Oh.
Shirin, Skittermander, Vesk, Isoki.
Yeah, I counted languages and I counted the Borai, Pristimi, and back.
There's no
I just counted
languages
lines.
ancestry you get to
Yes.
play, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Never mind. Yeah. So 10. So I guess that's the same 10.
So 10. Normal.
Okay.
The same 10 we know.
This
Which
is
is good.
6
They're
new
not
classes.
Well,
switching
we
anything
also know
out,
the
probably.
6 that are going to be in the that
Yeah.
are going to precede these, because that's
Yeah.
been announced.
Yes, that's
So-
true. There will be those ancestries in the
Right.
Galaxy
Okay.
Guide.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So those are in there. Thirsty mentioned the Jinsels will be in there. So that was a big player in the Scoured Stars kind of
Mhm.
whole adventure arc that was there. A bunch of new spells, including Phantasmal Fleet, which was in some of the playtests, but they had some art for that, which I thought was quite cool.
Is that must be a higher level one?
I
'cause
think
I
so.
don't
If you can bring a whole fleet, that seems like it's pretty high Witch Warper spell.
Well, but I don't actually see how that would. Go. 8th level spell it is,
Eighth level.
and it just does a bunch of mental damage by barraging the ground, and forces creatures to take cover. There's a lot of really interesting ways you could do that. If your whole role, right, was I just want a broad area damage spell, I think that there's tons of ways you could do that in any kind of fantasy game. And I think the question of, okay, but how do we make it a space fantasy game to do that? Phantasmal Fleet is kind of a good answer, right?
Mhm.
You're getting
Yeah.
orbital bombardment.
So there yeah, there are spells I think they were introduced in Secrets of Magic called incarnate spells. These are summoning spells essentially that you summon something, it does a big thing when it shows up, and then it leaves. You can then move it, and then it leaves, and it does another thing when it
And
leaves.
you control when it leaves, right?
I and you can no, it leaves the
Oh,
next
okay.
round. It's like a 2-round situation. It goes blip, it moves, and then it goes away. I think when you sustain it, you move it, and then it goes away. But they're generally pretty. Usually, like this is where you summon up a bunch of an army of skeletons comes out of nowhere and murder, or something huge like a vision of a spawn of Rovagug or something, or some. I think one of the ones is like some Arc Lord shows up and is like ah and blasts a bunch of people and then disappears. Definitely I could see that technology sort of getting used with probably some future magic focused book for Starfinder. Hey, look, yes, and doing things like this fleet. You summon the Bone Fleet,
Right.
from the
Mhm.
Corpse Fleet, and or an image of them or something. But it could actually be them or something like yes, a fleet of a fleet of brass spaceships from the elemental plane of fire shows up, blasts everybody in a big area, and then leaves in a whoosh of flames or something. That
So a
yeah,
Yep,
mechanic kind of
absolutely.
like that.
but
Yeah.
yeah, something
Mhm.
like that. Definitely. But like the way sort of Phantasmal Fleet here is fairly a little fairly along the same lines as I think it's called Phantasmal Calamity, which is like you basically like make everyone think there's an earthquake, whoa, and then they take the mental damage because they think they get hurt.
So it sounds like the player core is going to be a pretty good sized book, given it's going to reprint
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the same things that were in the Pathfinder player core as well. Just kind of Starfinder version of them, so that you have everything you need. It's
Yeah.
going to have all the equipment and stuff. You have a bunch of spells, so it's
Well,
I
yeah,
mean pretty
yeah.
substantial overall.
So we've been playing off the PlayStation Plate Test
Right.
Edition for a couple months now, right? And then the last week for work purposes, I was like, and they're like, you should make sure you look at the actual player core when you do this. I'm like, oh right,
Oh.
we could have it's been laid out and everything, and it should be. Let me go look at that, and so I got my a glimpse at what it
Mm.
how it
So have
looks.
you been doing it right?
Well, but he can't
I
tell us
mean,
otherwise,
there's all the
right?
changes. All the changes from
Okay.
the plate. There
All
are
the
changes from
errata,
the
right,
playtest.
is in
Mhm.
there,
Yeah, I mean, that's
and the
already in
changes.
there,
Oh,
and
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
some other
yeah. Okay.
changes.
No,
Yeah.
but
All right.
other than
Enough said.
that, but if in the course of our playtest game, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to roll my d8s for this. Jason's response is, oh, d8s, huh? Well, don't get used to those too much. Then,
I don't have the whole book memorized or anything, so if you're gonna know
Uh,
one thing or another,
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So a lot there. And shortly after that, so after the summer, the
but they
GM
didn't
core
say
comes.
when,
Right. Didn't say when.
right?
It didn't say when about the GM core. Now they did say for the alien core, um, by the end of the year.
Mhm.
So I saw that. So I take that to mean maybe halfway between August and the end of the year, GM core would come roughly.
Fingers crossed,
Yep.
I would
Yeah.
say,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. So expanded rules, including dynamic hacking, new subsystem, cinematic starship encounters, which I think means that there's no starship in the player core.
That would be usual, right? Because
Yeah.
between the Pathfinder player core versus GM core, a lot of the things like chases and stuff like that is all GM core stuff, not player core stuff.
Hmm. So you'd have that. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And there was some folks asked Thirsty about Starship Combat, and Thirsty and Jenny both mentioned how they're still working on the full tactical starship system. So that's not in anything of
Yeah.
yet. So they're still figuring that out.
Well, and that's going to be pretty mechanically crunchy. They also said that there's going to be a place later for the what is it, the mechanic and the technomancer.
Right. That are in playtest.
And mechanic, if mechanic and technomancer and technical starship rules all kind of come out in the same book, that wouldn't be a surprise, like some
Right.
sort of 2026 book.
Yep. Yeah. And it sounded like cinematic starship was different than narrative starship combat as well.
Maybe I don't
Yeah, the
know.
narrative starship combat system is that was in Starfinder First Edition is really kind of rudimentary version or a different type of. It's not even rudimentary. It's actually it does exactly what it needs to do. It's sort of a victory point system. It's a
Right.
very flexible
Right.
victory point system, like you see in Pathfinder Second Edition.
Hmm.
So if they say some sort of cinematic, cinematic says to me that there's going to be um, concessions for what is a fun story or a trope based on the rules. And so I could see something along the lines of, well, your player characters always happen to be right in the right spot for putting some damage back in place or repelling borders or whatever, right? Because that's
Right, right.
cinematically more important than technically, okay, now move your, 5 squares of movement within on the map of the ship.
Hmm.
So that's when I hear cinematic like that,
Sure,
I think I'm
yeah.
going to
I
put
mean,
myself as a
yeah.
character is going to be important in this Starship Company.
I see. Yeah, yeah. We never really like mixed the peanut butter and the chocolate with that in
Right.
first edition, right? It was like you didn't have to worry where you were. You were on the bridge or in the engineering. You could do anything. You could do any of the stuff kind of from anywhere. So it didn't have to necessarily worry about you moving a little guy around or anything like that.
Yeah. When he mentioned cinematic, the first thing I thought of was actually the Scum and Villainy Starship Combat that we did. I thought that was
Oh
very
yeah.
cinematic,
Mhm.
in terms of, okay, what are you going to try to do? What's the overall thing you're trying to do? Okay, let's figure out what the
Yeah.
challenge rating of that thing would be and what skills you would use to do that and then roll.
And
So
then, maybe
very
put a clock together to be sure. Yeah.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the first thing that came to mind for that. Now, I thought the narrative Starship combat rules were really awesome. Whoever wrote that did a wonderful job. So I would,
I was wondering. I was gonna say something, but I
I know. I was
changed. I
wondering if
didn't
Ron
want
was
to.
gonna
I
what
didn't want
direction
to put
Ron was
Ron on
gonna go
blast.
there. So
Well, that's why I realized rudimentary was exactly the wrong word, right? As soon as I
I
said it, I'm like, not because you wrote it, although now I realize that was also a reason to not use something that might sound pejorative like rudimentary. It did exactly what it needed to do as far
yeah.
as, oh, let's tell the story of the Starship Combat. And
Yeah.
let's tell the
yeah, yeah.
story
I
in a
mean,
way where the players have control over what they're doing in the Starship.
there was the Starship Chases system that came kind of before
Right.
it that I sort of would looked at and decided kind of based around the idea of like, just what do you want to do and how do you want to do it, and then yeah, if you need to say something about like, oh, 3 hits and that's a
Right.
ship is gone. That's kind of just basically keeping it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm slightly distracted because I think it's pouring rain outside and it just got really
Oh,
loud
yeah.
Oh,
We can't
wow.
at the
even hear it.
store.
So
Yeah, no, I'm
safe.
sure you can't hear it, but I can kind of
Okay.
hear. It sounds like an ocean is happening somewhere. Um.
Yeah. So
Anyway, yes, it's something you don't want to hear when you're in a starship is the sound of the ocean just outside
That's
your
true.
bulkhead.
That's true.
okay.
Yeah.
After that, end of the year, Alien Core goes from levels -1 to 25 with the Illuminatra, that big thing that Thirsty made,
The fractal
uh,
monster.
Illuminatra,
fractal.
fractal
Yeah.
monster.
Um, and because the Alien Core is coming so late, anything out there, any adventures and stuff will have full stat blocks in them so that you don't have to
Okay,
have,
great.
they're not referencing something that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah,
So that's
Yeah,
smart.
this
kinda
is
all they
this is
said.
actually really interesting to see how this is going to work for them because I think people really like that, right? Like
Oh, I like it.
users,
Yeah.
I think, like having all the monsters right where it needs to be, right, to run a combat, and having to reference another book. On one hand, it's inconvenient, right? Why didn't you just put the stats right where they need to be? But on the other hand, they're like, well, but why would you just reproduce stats I already have in this other book and lose me a column of what could be more
Yeah.
story or more adventure?
Right.
And I think that there's
Yeah.
a tendency in print products to push towards being concise and referring to monsters in other sources, whereas in digital products, there's more of a tendency to go the other way. Well, we have an unlimited amount of pages in a PDF. We'll just go ahead and
Mhm.
give you all the stats that you need, and so people can kind of use one form factor or another to kind of get whatever it is they'd like. It was very educational to me in going back and forth to learn that the preferences can be different based on the two form factors. But
Hmm.
the early Starfinder second edition stuff is going to be using the digital form factor for their physical products, and I wonder whether people are going to be like, "I really like that," or or not. Right?
Mm.
I guess they'll see what the
And
public
want
feedback
that for
is.
the future. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. M- Because I'm I run most of my stuff digitally and using Foundry most of the time. It's all just sort of like there too. Like, even if it's an AP, like I can click on the
Right.
token and there's the
Yeah.
stat block
Yep.
because all that stuff is, basically it's either in the book of the adventure or it's on Nethys anyway. So,
Yeah.
essentially
Now, one of the
available.
things they didn't say and nobody asked is, will all these adventures have Foundry support when they're launched? Because that would be really, really cool if
It's a
they
good
did.
question.
I had heard that was kind of a goal at one point, but it's hard to say because that's a whole different mechanism to get people to do that. I don't think they do it in house. So
Yeah.
um, it's quite a
There's been, I feel like I've seen most of the Pathfinder APs getting the Foundry support as they're coming out since like, which one? No, because they haven't all didn't have
right,
them
right, right. But more
like
recently,
when it
yeah.
launched, but like maybe since Season of Ghosts, they've all been on Foundry
Mhm.
somewhere.
Well, yeah, and that's
Especially available through the Paizo
right,
store, basically,
right.
right?
So that would be
Because
helpful for that.
yeah, so maybe I don't know the full extent of the mechanism that gets those things from Pathfinder to Foundry, but like if it's big enough, it can because it's using the same kind of stuff
Right.
anyway, like the same sort of like digital skeleton. Uh,
Mhm.
New Starfinder monster, I bet, but it might be easier to do. Now that we're all using the same
Mhm,
system.
mhm. Speaking of digital adventures and whatnot, they did show a screenshot or art for Murder in Metal City, a deluxe Starfinder adventure that takes place on Avalon, city of striving. Um,
See, this is the thing that I found most exciting about what they
mhm,
were saying, because this is not just it's not just an adventure. It's sort of a whole presentation factor product that's going to have
Hmm.
all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff in it, right? As far as, I mean, we can't, what did it say specifically? He said it's
cards,
going to,
tokens,
it's probably
maps, GM tools. Yeah,
you know,
all kinds of stuff.
all in one box, and a brand new ancestry,
yeah,
and
and
it's not a beginner
um,
box, so it's going to be for people who have the game and want to
yeah.
play the game. But rather than just, okay, here is your softcover or hardcover adventure, we're doing a different way of presenting an adventure product for you with kind of everything. I don't know if it's going to be everything self-contained, but it's got a lot of stuff sort of self-contained. I think that's really appealing.
Including custom minis or not minis, pre-gens just for they're tailored for the adventure as well, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah. I'm curious as to what the cards are exactly. I'm wondering if they maybe put some of like the spells that the pre-gens have on cards,
Oh,
like we have
spell
all the
cards, that
spell
would be really
cards
Creature
that
helpful.
cards,
exist.
like for the monsters
Creature
that
cards?
Creatures. Oh yeah, like the
Mhm.
from the what are they called? They're called something.
Uh,
They're just called
The battle
battle
cards.
cards. Yeah,
battle
yeah,
Yeah.
cards, battle boxes. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Battle
yeah,
cards. Yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, cards with the monster. This is what you look at, and I see the stats on the
yeah. If
Yeah.
you're
inside.
There
playing
was.
Yeah,
in
that's cool.
person, those are really helpful. Both
Yeah. There
both
was.
those
There was
kinds.
not.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know how well those did, right? But they had like John, didn't you? Aren't you doing for your Fists of the Ruby Phoenix? You got the
Yeah.
Fists of the Ruby Phoenix
Yep. Battle
battle
cards.
cards, and I
Yeah.
know that one of the last things I worked on was the Abomination Vaults battle cards. So it was like, here's all the
Yeah.
cards you need to run this entire adventure path.
Hmm.
Um, Pretty convenient, I think, for pulling pulling in a lot of the, you want the fancy art on one side to be able to show your players and the stats on
Right.
the other in order to help you run it. That's something that could be super useful.
Yeah, for in-person play, and I can see that in a box like this. Seems like a lot of the stuff they've
Sure,
been
yeah.
doing is kind of for online play, trying to enable that as well with things. So I'm glad that they have some focus here, and I actually hope for all the APs. I hope they do battle cards and specific tokens for the APs. I think that'd be awesome if those are available. So I don't know that they're doing tokens anymore for pawns.
You haven't done pawns for
For a
an
while.
adventure
Yeah,
path
those. Yeah.
for a while.
Yeah, I like those. So it is a
They're nice and they're
yeah.
helpful, but it's the matter of like
Right.
they don't sell too well, unfortunately.
It is a murder mystery in Striving on Avalon, with a cyberpunk slash space noir type of vibe to it, which sounds pretty cool.
What's interesting about the cover of this is that it looks like it's Quig and Raya, the iconic mechanic and technomancer, respectively.
Well, that's a good
Did you think
point.
it was Raya? I looked at it really quick.
I don't know. Oh no, not Raya. No, it's not. She's got the
Yeah,
Raya. This is
I
an
thought it was
android. This
like
is definitely an
Isaac with
android.
long
But
hair is what it looked like to me instead of a mohawk.
oh, might
Yeah,
be. Yeah, I see if it's now just. It's
yeah,
difficult to say. But that looks like Quig to
yeah,
me
yeah.
for sure.
But you're
So I
just
don't know.
stereotyping
If
all
they're
Yosoki now,
Well,
I
and it's
think.
who is Quig's drone? That's Quig's drone.
well,
That's really the thing that makes that identifiably Quig is that
Yeah.
same drone is there.
right. He's doing some sort of
All
drone
right.
thing.
Now I'm gonna
Could be just two different. Just two. It's probably two of the pre-gens.
right, yeah,
Most
from
likely.
in there. Yeah. Now I'm gonna have to put
From
the
whatever,
art.
and
I'm gonna
then
have to put
who
the
knows?
art here in our thing again because we're talking about it so
Okay.
much.
Although no, they could do something like this,
Sorry.
right? One of the pre-gens could be the mechanic, right? It could be Quig because if it's a pre-gen first level adventure, they only need to present the first couple levels of the mechanic. They don't need to
Hmm.
have done everything all the way up. And if by this point, whatever product that class is going to go into is settled enough that they'd be able to kind of show off the first couple levels of it, maybe that's a regen in here.
The the possible tricky thing is that as long as it doesn't reference anything that's not in player core,
Right.
Starfinder
Right.
player core, which you
You could
could
probably
probably do.
do if you were putting everything on if everything's on pre-generated character sheets and, cards maybe. I don't know.
Did
Mechanic is
they
maybe harder
say
because you've
when
got
this is coming
drones
out?
and the drone rules are probably
Maybe,
separate
yeah.
and yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I
We'll
didn't get a
see.
date on it. No.
Okay.
So
So we'll have to see. I mean, drone rules are not going to be probably that different than the animal companion rules, right? I mean, they function. They kind of function the same way in 1E as animal companions for Pathfinder 1E. I can't imagine they'd be similar enough. I don't know, but I mean, you've got to do all the other stuff, the tech stuff, right? Whatever, or just sort of like inventors has the construct companion
mm,
innovation,
mhm.
right? That's got its own sort of semi-separate set of rules. Borrowing from those maybe would be a way to sort of showcase what a drone does in some, I don't know.
Right. And they talked about a new ancestry, the Khazar in there as well, the plant people.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that a super weird choice? They're the plant people.
No, because there's a thriving. They're from Abalon. They've always been from Abalon, or for the
Oh, I
most
thought they
part.
were from
There's
Castroville.
no. There's a thriving. There's a. It's not striving. What's it? It's like an ice well. There's like this. Obviously most of Abalon is sort of
Right.
desolate nothingness because of where it is in the solar system, and it's because it's run by machines. But there's like an ice hole essentially. Don't bleep me out. I
Filled
said
with
ice hole.
atmosphere, right?
Atmosphere and plants and stuff, and that's where the Kizar, I think, are originally
Oh,
from.
Okay.
hmm. I thought
In my
they
mind, they
mentioned
were always a
Castroville as
Castroville
well.
plant creature.
Yeah, but maybe it's
Hmm.
I don't know. But so that's
Castroville already has too
There's
many
so many
ancestries in it.
plants on
yeah, so many
Castroville
things.
already.
No, it's just it's already got. It's got Lashunta, it's got elves, it's got the Formians. right?
Yes.
4
Yep.
millions?
Yep.
Yep.
4 million.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right.
Too
Too many.
Oh, 3. The 3 is enough for one planet. 3 ancestors is enough for one planet. Don't look at Galarian.
Nobody's looking at Galarian and Starfinder anymore, and Rudy
Yeah.
could bring it up even, frankly, because it's so gone.
Right. They also talked about a Starfinder novel, Era of the Eclipse by Tim Pratt, which has an audiobook out as well. And it talks
I've
about
liked Tim Pratt
Mhm.
stuff, so this is neat.
what else has he
Yeah,
done?
yeah.
I'm not familiar.
He did the Liars stuff? What did he Liar's Blade?
Liar's Blade and Liar's something. I can't remember the name of it.
But it starts on Absalon Station the day after the gap and talks about what happens there.
Nice.
And it includes To the Iconics when they were just junior Starfinders. Kind of give some like an origin story for them, it sounds like. So
Cool.
sounds kind of neat.
I'm gonna jump back here. I'm gonna rewind us a little bit and apologize to Ron because yes, the Khazars are originally from. Okay.
Yes.
But they do live. Some of them there's a big chunk of them that moved to
Yes.
Avalon
Okay.
and live in those ice
Yeah, well, there's a
wells.
lot there after Ron was right, and that.
It was just static to you.
Well, let's talk about something where I know that Jason is right. It's the Infinity deck from Paizo Games.
Yeah, I want to hear about
That's
this.
right. It's a deck of cards,
Okay.
y'all. It's so the conceit is that it's a deck of cards that the rules were lost in the gap. However, they're just also everywhere. There's like if, for instance, if something happened to Hoyle, right, and erased Hoyle from everyone's, but you'd have this cards. Everyone's got a deck of cards in their house. What are they? They just look like they're just there. So a bunch of people, a bunch of ancestries and civil and settlements and whatnot have created games around them, right? So like we got this card. How do people? That's what minds do. Sentient minds do. Well, they'll find something, they'll make a game out of it, right? And so this is a sort of a flexible deck of playing cards that comes with 4 games written for it, and then the idea is that feel free to make your own games.
And it's also in the game as something that the players can play.
Yes, it's in the setting.
Yeah.
Right. It's in Starfinder. You can go and you can set this, and you can play one of these games that are in the Infinity deck as a something in your campaign, or before the adventure starts. We're waiting for someone who's half an hour later. Well, let's play a quick game of this. Or you can. There's a bet. There's I don't want to say too much about what's in the games because we don't say. But there's a game that works. You can play it in such a way like, oh, maybe you'll lose your starship or whatever. And stuff like that.
Gambling.
So, you
Paizo's
gotta
into gambling
gotta have
now.
a game like that.
Yeah.
No, don't listen. But they're gonna look real good, real fancy cards. 5 suits basically to make it a little different and weird. And then like some different sort of face cards that are.
And you worked on this with Joe Piscini.
That's right. Joe Piscini and I worked on this. This was just to sort of showcase. We've been talking about something like this for a while now.
Fun.
And I'm so happy that we finally get to sort of like do it and put it out there because it was good. It's fun.
Did you also design all 4 of the discovered games to play with it?
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
Nice.
Because creating a deck of playing cards, just saying it's got 5 suits and some, that takes like 30 minutes. So you can just decide on what the suits are, and the bulk of it is the games. And we wrote like a bunch of them, and we kind of had we pared them down a little bit to the ones that were the most.
Instead of Go Fish, you have
exciting.
now Go Laser Netting or something, right?
Go Laser, it's called.
Well, once this is out, I want you to tell us which is your favorite of the 4 games and why. That's
okay.
We'll do a whole show on the Infinity.
This should be coming out. This should be coming out at Gen Con.
There'll be a digital version that we can play online.
No, not a digital
we'll
version.
Not yet.
Not really. Not exactly. I could. Well, not to say that I don't have a digital version that exists that I could play with y'all, but just that we use for playtesting purposes. But that is a proprietary.
Yeah.
Roll20
that
allows you to make decks and stuff, so we could build decks in there pretty easily.
Oh well, I'll it's in. Well, I have it in Tabletop Simulator. Do you all?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, I've done actually some.
I think everyone does
Tabletop Simulator even.
Yeah, no, but Tabletop Simulator is great for playtesting.
Yeah.
All right. They kind of closed. Kind of their last thing they talked about is they weren't going to talk much about org play or anything like that. Stuff's coming down the road. But then they did show a picture of Zoe and mentioned that there is an adventure path exploring the darkest secrets of something.
Dark
Dark
secrets.
secrets in Zoe.
Always good to explore in an
And in
adventure
the
path.
in the cover art of it, they show Zoe and a planet behind him is being shattered, cracked in half. So
And this is the one with the
Mhm.
weird, like, flying the spaceship that looks like a bird with a laser
yes,
tube as a
yes.
base? Okay.
So I don't know what all that reference is.
If I had to guess, that's a corpse fleet
Yes,
spaceship.
that looks like a
Okay.
corpse fleet.
It kind of looks like it's made out of bone.
And it looks like
Um,
Alderaan, though, exploding, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's
It does, and
definitely
you
not
know what?
Eox, because
No.
Eox did not blow up that
No.
extensively.
Yeah.
But you know what EX is responsible for,
The Diaspora?
which is 2 planets
It's the
that exploded.
Oh, but I thought it was 2 planets that ran into each other.
I don't think they ran into each other. I think they were destroyed.
Yeah,
Oh.
remember Dead Suns? It was
I
all
recall
about
that
that that thing at the end that you had to find that did stuff and blow things up.
Yeah,
The Stellar Degenerator?
the
Yeah, the
Stellar
Stellar
Degenerator and
Degenerator.
the Empire of Bones.
No one's playing that one anymore. You know all about what's going on. No, that had nothing to do with the creation of the
No, but I thought that was something that could blow up planets. So
No, what it would do, it was kill a sun.
oh,
It
a
would,
sun. Oh, you're right. I guess
it was a stellar
yeah.
generator. It would dead the
Okay.
sun, you know.
Hey, hence the name.
Hence the
okay.
title. Yeah.
Shoot.
I remember
I thought it could
working
blow
on
up
that, trying to realize,
planets.
like, so what is this? What does this do again? Coming in at like book 5 to do the development
Yeah.
on. I'm like, what do we have to tell them what it does at this
Yeah.
point. I'm just like, stellar generator, ooh, spooky. Yeah, it accelerates the life cycle of the sun. To turn it
Okay. Well,
into
never
a
mind. It's
brown
not
dwarf,
a
I think.
planet destroyer then, planet buster.
I'm totally
Okay.
spoiling a lot of
I
what
know.
goes on in
Shoot.
Stellar Generator.
This
But
whole time I thought I did
that's
that.
the science of it
All right.
Well, let me make sure to jump
it would
in
result.
and say that
Yeah.
Jason is totally correct on this one, because a quick search myself is that the Diaspora was founded when the planets Damiar and Iovo were shattered by a magical super weapon that the Elebrians of Eox built.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
See, that's why I thought it was the Stellar Degenerator. I didn't realize it was a different thing.
oh, the
I'm
different
just
magical
going to go
super
ahead
weapon.
and
Yeah.
spoil everything about Dead Suns. Is that the Stellar Degenerator was, of course, not created by the Librians of Eox.
Ooh.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Sorry,
knew that.
I'm
We
not
knew
going to say
that.
who does it. I'm not going to
Yeah,
say that. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
All right. And they just said that there was a lot more coming down the road. So a lot more information, a lot more
Mhm.
announcements. So I imagine this will be the typical drip campaign, like every month or so they mention something else.
Yeah, that was a very
Well,
very
yeah.
expected end, because no way they're going to end a presentation like that with it. And that's it, everybody.
No more till Gen Con.
And
Yeah.
then Starfinder's done. Now.
All right, but still, that's a lot. That's a lot, and not even a
Yeah.
full hour. They really touched on a whole bunch of stuff, so it was a
That's a lot to
pretty good show.
I think so. What excites you most, John? Murder in Metal City excites me most. John, what are you most excited about?
Well, I was excited about that as well. I think just seeing even the player core and the GM core. I mean, just seeing the whole rule set out there with the final version is going to be like, and how they equip everything, because we see in the playtest a really good snapshot of where they're going, but we don't know where it ends up. And so for me, a lot of that is, where does it end up?
Mhm.
Jason, what are you excited about?
I like monsters, so I'm always excited about a bestiary type books. Love them. Alien Core all the way.
Awesome.
Well, you have to
Baby.
wait the longest then.
I do, or do I? Wink.
No, I know. It's already being, yeah. It's already being written now. All right. Well, I'm John.
And I'm Ron.
And I'm Jason, and this has been Digital Divination.